We're going to skip the introduction once more now. We must get straight into this. Since honestly, even if I didn't even wish to discuss the recent events, it's so horrible that it's down. Just what occurred is crucial for everyone to be conscious of, and everyone must see how hip-hop just stood united to convey a message once more to the worst individuals. Okay, so before we continue, be sure to leave a subscription and like so that hip-hop culture can continue to be safe. That's where we are, where conditions are this dire. Additionally, considering everything. What I am precisely in reference to is the large swing and trying to destroy the Clips record. Just before it falls, sabotage it. Only a few days before its release. Additionally, once more and for the incorrect reasons. We are observing that Push and Malice still have issues in the sector and are among those who are treated the worst there. Since, on the one hand, the Clips the record has already advanced to a level of recordings, such as Mad City. Good Kid, the Carter 3 and Graduation are not always for a valid purpose. Yet it is due to the fact that these records the record made an effort to be destroyed and split just before it arrived out. However, what is significantly different now is seeing the current age that we live in. As music consumption is ineffective in a similar way to how these breaches occur so frequently, nevertheless, in the past, many of these breaches typically occurred due to admirers or just folks taking early control of the projects. Okay? Between the performers and the Clips arguing and the device they have chosen to defy. When did they really leave their branding in this case? It's far more intricate than you may imagine. Never anticipated. Additionally, you piece together collectively how the series of events transpired after the time frame received the news. That Clips record was playing. You'll realize early on that this wasn't a rogue leaker or something like that. However, indeed, this was a planned and well-planned event to attempt to take action as soon as Push, Team Malice, and the other members of the Avengers of Rap are attempting to produce. However, if you want to delve deeper into it, first off, remember to hit like if you have not yet, so that everyone may see how repulsive this opposing aspect of hip-hop is in motion. But first, before I go investigating who is actually in charge of this and what was taking place with regard to who I wanted to convey that I attempted to accomplish this. This is wonderful news regarding this leak. Now, what they attempted to accomplish is, despite witnessing someone attempt something such as this, which just takes the enjoyment out of music entirely and disregards all, not even the regulations, of hip-hop, but only in the proper manner. Something that individuals strive hard at in general, that they will utilize to sustain their family and themselves. Well, although some leaks are happening, at least particularly in hip-hop, they are so awful that they have led 2 albums in the past being postponed or canceled. Additionally, we have seen people stop listening to complete hip-hop masterpieces, such as Nas and Eminem, for this exact cause. Well, in this case at least, for the squad that lost and the one that was responsible for causing all of the surrounding turmoil. The recording of the Clips is leaking. Thus, the individuals who were all essentially Drake and Travis Scott are demonstrating that this is what they were listening to, and the others are simply disregarding it. Okay? What was finally found in this problem was the fact that the leak wasn't the real record but nearly a ruse in logic, given that the rip was of such poor quality off the record, which appeared to have been stolen from a test CD or similar substance. Additionally, it nearly seems like pushing a team. Fell and Malice knew that this might occur and that the whole business is essentially opposed to him, which is why it appears that these copies of the document exist. In this leak, however, from instrumentals to missing tunes that were already upgraded to verified characteristics such as Tyler and Nas, the absence of the creator, and then part 1 of So Be It is on this album, instead of the tracks confirmed part 2 of the So Be It list. Okay, so what we are observing with everything is that whoever managed to obtain this album attempted to spoil the whole event just before everyone hears it. Okay, so they failed on a number of levels. including perhaps a rendition of the record that appears as if that were all that Def Jam might have had sometime in the summer of 2024, or only a generic demo of the record. And in light of everything, let's simply recall how Malice and Push It have been handled throughout their careers by the industry, nearly worse than everybody else. Thus, once more, it wouldn't be too far to believe they were prepared for anything like this to collapse at any feasible moment since. Once more, we see that the characteristics that we are aware of were absent, and there were no tunes. Then, moreover, considering what else may be occurring, even the characteristics that we are aware of might be used as a diversion to conceal oneself from possibly more significant matters similar to another guest verse by Kendrick Lamar and even a feature by Jay-Z, which is appearing to be more feasible. However, it would undoubtedly catch us all. Unexpected, since the characteristics have already been announced. So let's push A. The videos appear to have set up all of this to be an exquisite surprise. Really though, given the way that Push Malice and Fell were created, the whole record, you might say, with the unexpected and the ongoing as far as we are aware. Evolution is on the current record in contrast to what was on in this place. You may argue that, in a sense, between their artistic endeavors and then with all of hip-hop's positive cultural aspects, they have enough regard for them to not even approach this record and provide amusement. The concept sufficiently to make it work, removed from the time when we were all going to arrive on Friday. Okay? So what we are witnessing is an attempt to destroy this album didn't work. Additionally, as Pusha T actually released more autographed copies of the record's vinyl up for pre-order at the same moment this occurred, they sold out in a flash. Really, though, at this precise time, it is manifesting in such a manner that each time someone attempts to tamper with the clips throughout this whole circle of hip-hop has some of the greatest backing in the whole genre. Additionally, every time another artist tries, it appears the supporters merely come to mess with them. Together more, support their artistic endeavors and ensure that everyone is aware of it is valuable, as this is the amount we desire this tune. Furthermore, this is how much of the watered-down rap game we are prepared to stand by and defend the individuals who are ensuring that the craft that we all adore continues to expand and flourish. But now that everything is in place, sadly, even if this is the positive part of everything, which is why I wished to start with it, the leak has been defeated by Clips, somewhat of a game, and are still entering the release of their record with enormous anticipated outcomes and forecasts, with all of the surrounding times and stars. Well, aside from the fact that the videos are prepared for anything when it comes down to all the components that went into it. In order to stop this leak, there was a whole campaign that appeared to have been about this leak, which must be dealt with. And now for the question of who the greatest rap song would want to ruin arguably the 2025 album, and an album that Roc Nation is releasing in full with their support on a scale similar to ours never laid eyes on. Well, there, off-rip, are three names, all of whom are rappers, could have contributed to this. But I'm not going to waste any more time on the first of these three. You can most likely determine rather quickly if you see who has not stopped criticizing Roc Nation, and Jay-Z repeatedly on the chronology once more. Now that one has been cleared aside from that catastrophe. I simply don't believe it has adequate control or even possesses sufficient industry connections any longer to let anything of this magnitude slip. From here, we have two options: circles and artists that would both have benefited greatly in terms of trespassing on the rap movie that is going to fall when it hits Friday. And you most likely guessed who. Naturally, these two are not the same compared to Drake and Travis Scott. And now I'm stating this here as we're assembling the components in terms of there being a genuine leak campaign, this data an attempt to mitigate the real whilst the videos are playing. This is a genuine phenomenon, and this leak just had to be more than a stranger. First of all, putting anything out, since I am aware of this, And now I actually declare this with assurance because an odd rollout occurred regarding how news of this event surfaced in the first position, which came with one of the largest rap pages currently available in terms of reporting. And breaking news. They informed us, however, that the Clips album appeared on the internet in a post that was more peculiar than before, since you could only engage with it if you were a page member. Which is nothing because they have never carried out any significant post. Additionally, everyone is collectively observing that at the moment. And now producing, making matters worse, and demonstrating that this is actually even more put up. They have shared some touring information on the Clips tour in an effort to promote this story in which they are failing. Additionally, naturally, as this is material that these accounts are never created. Even when the real Drake's most recent tour failed due to the fact that there were open seats and it was canceled. Well, this whole thing is merely disorganized. And now, really, as you can see when you examine the real ticketing report that was released, the videos demonstrate that they departed from the band that issued these names and numbers on the real piece of paper, which, upon closer inspection, simply conducts a little search to see that that is the team that is working as well. For Travis Scott, well, once more, something is up. Also, to be honest, with the timing of everything, even how this followed closely behind Travis Scott and his Jack Boys too in general announcements. So that's a start. I see it as a flag. Additionally, as I now know that other artists have created things such as this previously and utilize these pages to fabricate tales about their competitors and for illustration using the same plot on such pages. Once more, I don't wish to utilize particular names and obtain anyone in trouble. However, what I will say, and I have already discussed it earlier this year, which ought to provide a bit more background for you. There was an artist who was about to release a record with a tale from his group planted directly on these kinds of the papers said Drake was considering falling on the same night, which I subsequently discovered was anything his public relations staff released. Now that I've heard all of this, and as I have already discussed as I used to work on social media, what I can say about rappers and musicians is that with regard to the implementation of all this, as well as how they separated the interactions, it's really something. It is consistent with what I've observed in the level of artists and the past are prepared to step on each other. Additionally, since I've worked in this space, one post that I can see was hired by a group or team instead of a biological one. Okay, something is not right, particularly since Travis Scott was beginning Jack's rollout. Boys 2, kicking things up with a new song and then announcing its release in July, just as his competitor's record is being disclosed. And now, to be honest, when you discuss many topics, particularly in this day and age, in the sector where conditions are just so quiet and dishonest, what I shall say is that when you consider everything and combine these steps, well, in terms of deliberately encouraging your group to prepare a tale after leaking an album, and begin a rollout simultaneously. Time, well, we have one left. Organization that was in charge of the leak, the footage captures the man who was releasing a partial version of his record in an attempt to sell vinyl copies and compete against Pusha T in the first position. Once more though, when you placed into perspective the whole context of perhaps he or his group are the ones who did it, or perhaps the labels are the ones who desire rock and this indie release, the nation's project will collapse. However, it is appearing to be more from a competitor. Artists only on the basis of the media used to inform everyone that, based on the web quotation unquotes, all of the video content, which was all bad, was taking place. Now that we have this, when we just observe rappers attempting to discredit one another's albums without a counter to music, but once more using these wacky and pathetic motions, they just undermine the competitions, regulations, then exchange them for these embarrassing gotcha moments. All right, let's just take Drake, for instance. As I clearly disapprove of what he is doing, and I am fed up with his antics and the things he symbolizes, I would never condone leaks or wish they had occurred on his songs. appearing as we observed in this Cliff's effort here, since it just dampens the manner in which a creator can truly make their musical debut and compete on their own terms, regardless of whether I want them to succeed or fail. And once more, when we simply observe these Drake admirers, and for that matter, Travis fans, we now merely disrespect the code to such an extent that it has consistently been acknowledged in rap between artists. Overall, nevertheless, these strange stories and activities that these groups are employing to attempt to eliminate other rappers must quit. However, as it does, this does not appear to be any place outside of sight yet, as well as the manner in which when these teams travel, you never know what could occur next. Now that we are still trapped in this time period and rap limbo, where fans and rappers who are incapable of rapping genuinely dislike the culture of everything, attempting to just destroy what rap has always meant and represented. What I can say, though, is that when the clips are released, hopefully they will truly make a big difference when this publishes records in its own pace. And from there, they shall resolve each and every forever one of these idiots. And now, having stated that, please let me know what you think about what happened just now. These clips are leaking. What are your thoughts? Who is at fault, and what was actually occurring? And what was the objective, finally? And do you believe that perhaps this came from artists such as me, stating? Or do you believe that perhaps the WAS industry as a whole was involved? Naturally, since Push and Malice apart from the label system, there are numerous people opposing them in a manner that we don't see with the majority of artists. Now, I'm eager to hear what you have to say. Talk about all of this. Now, assuming you succeeded until the end of the video, make sure to subscribe and give it a like. Actually, it does really assist me, particularly on such a video. Now, if you'd want to observe how, listen. Just before this, I've already seen Travis and Drake. Scott was attempting to defeat Kendrick. Pusha T by Lamar and the whole Cliff's record, as well as from musical contests to such shenanigans, make me cringe. Well, they simply began acting strangely, but they have further things planned that I discuss. Roughly there. Examine the recommended video.